Hello everyone and welcome to another Pyro Gaming video. As the Destiny 2 footage continues to pour in and people are just dissecting it like crazy, it got me thinking, how are we going to earn exotics in Destiny 2? It's a question that we don't really have an answer for yet. Well, we don't have a full answer for yet, which I'll clarify that as this video progresses, but for the time being, let's take a trip back in time to year 1 of Destiny 1. This is before 3 of Coins, this is before your exotic blueprints in the Hall of Vanguards, this is before all of that stuff. This was the time when exotics were truly 100% RNG. There was no quest for exotics aside from the Vanguard Mentor Missive bounties that you would get to get things like Thorn, Pocket Infinity, Super Good Advice, and 2 other ones, I forget. But other than those 5 exotics that dropped from those bounties, literally every other exotic in the game was completely up to RNG. And to put things in perspective for those of you who did not play Destiny in year 1, the only way to know which exotics you had gotten and which exotics you didn't get was to either A, write them down yourself on a piece of paper, or B, go to sites like DestinyExoticTracker.com where you could import your character through an API and just manually check off each exotic that you got. You know, because again, we didn't have the exotic weapon or exotic armor kiosks back in year 1, so there was no way to tell. And to put this even further in perspective as to how RNG it truly was, I was a day 1 Destiny player. I did a lot of raids, I did a lot of Crucible back in year 1, I did a lot of strikes, I did a lot of in-game activities, and I did not get my first Gallarhorn until House of Wolves. I actually got my first Gallarhorn from the first Prison of Elders that I ever did, because you were guaranteed an exotic the first time you opened the Prison of Elders chest, and that's when I got my first Gallarhorn. I started playing Destiny in September, I got my first Gallarhorn in May. That is a grind. You compare that to the Taken King and on forward to the Taken King until now, and exotics are just infinitely easier to come by because of the additions of 3 of Coins, exotic weapon quests, and just general exotic rainstorms. I don't know what you want to call it, but exotics nowadays don't feel exotics. I mean, when I get an exotic now, it's a shard. I don't need it. I have them all. It's no big deal. I don't care. And on one hand, when the Taken King first came out and they introduced 3 of Coins, it was a great concept. It was a great concept. It truly was. It was a way for you to get an exotic without doing a raid, without doing a nightfall, and without buying something from Xur, which we're going to talk more about Xur here in just a little bit. But at the same time, 3 of Coins just cheapened exotics so much, man. It made them turn into a common drop, honestly. Like, I remember, the first couple of times that I used 3 of Coins and an exotic actually dropped for me, I was like, hell yeah, I got an exotic. You would call it out to your fire team if you were playing with somebody. Like, ooh, there's an exotic on the ground for me. Yay. You'd be all excited about it. Now it's whatever. It's just regular boss engrams. No big deal. I'm going to take it to the Cryptarch, turn it in. It's going to be shit. I'm going to throw it away. And I feel like for Destiny 2 to be a more immersive experience, to be everything that Destiny 1 was supposed to be, but wasn't quite. To be that, I feel like 3 of Coins has to go in Destiny 2. And not just 3 of Coins, but any 3 of Coins equivalent. Anything that has an effect like 3 of Coins. I don't want any consumables whatsoever that's going to increase the chance of me getting an exotic. I want that shit to be totally RNG. I'm okay with a few exotic quests like we had in the Taken King. In the Taken King, we had exotic quests for the First Curse, the Chaperone, the exotic swords, Touch of Malice, Rise of Iron. We had exotic quests for Outbreak Prime, the new versions of Thunderlord. I'm okay with all that stuff, but what I'm not okay with in those quests is cramming Crucible down our throats. Now, I'm remaining hopeful in that Destiny 2's Crucible is going to be absolutely nothing like Destiny 1's Crucible, by which I mean it won't be complete and total ass and cancer, or ass cancer if you just want to go ahead and paint a very vivid picture of how I feel about Destiny 1's Crucible. I absolutely hated the fact that to get an exotic sword that is a primarily PvE weapon, I had to go get kills in the Crucible with a fucking sword handle. That pissed me off. Same with First Curse. First Curse is not very good in Crucible. It's more of a PvE weapon, yet I still had to go get a precision headshot kill streak in the Crucible, or get whatever it was, get so many headshots in the Crucible with that crappy test weapon. I don't like that. I don't like them trying to force you into the Crucible. If we don't want to play Crucible, we don't want to play Crucible. And same goes vice versa. If you don't want to play PvE, you shouldn't have to play PvE to get the weapons that you want. If you're a PvE player, be a PvE player. If you're a PvP player, be a PvP player. If you're both, be both. That's fine. But if you don't like one or the other, you shouldn't have to be forced to play it. And I think that's stupid. I think that it should have been, for the exotic sword quest, instead of the 25 kills in the Crucible with a sword, and the 50 kills for majors in PvE, it should have been one or the other, not both. You should have got to choose, so that if you didn't want to go in the Crucible, you didn't have to go in the Crucible, and if you didn't want to go in PvE, you didn't have to go in PvE. But that's a topic for a whole nother video. Earlier, I mentioned Xur, and the reason I mentioned Xur is because in Destiny 2, it's very likely that Xur or another agent of the Nine will make an appearance at some point. When you take into consideration the fact that Xur only comes to the tower on Fridays and Saturdays and he's gone Sunday morning, in theory, if Gaul attacks the tower during the week and not on the weekend, then Xur's probably not there and he'll be unaffected. That being said, he could easily go to the new social space in the European Dead Zone known as the Farm in Destiny 2 and sell us some stuff. The flip side of that is, of course, what if the attack does happen on the weekend and Xur gets killed or Xur gets lost or whatever the case may be? Well, we know that there's other agents of the Nine out there just past the reef. So, although we don't know a lot about them, we have to assume that they have an infatuation with strange coins as well, and also have the same connections that Xur has when it comes to the types of weapons that they can get their hands on, or their nasty little face tentacles. So, I would have to assume that, and it is an assumption, by the way, that we're going to have Xur return in Destiny 2, or a Xur equivalent. In addition to Xur, I feel like now that exotic weapon kiosks and exotic armor kiosks have been established in Destiny 1, I feel like you're going to have something similar in Destiny 2. Now, because Destiny 2's social space is going to be basically a big open farm, and it's not going to be something that's very technically advanced like the tower was, well, maybe it's going to be something more like you go to a gunsmith with, the schematics for that weapon, and that gunsmith then builds your weapon or your armor piece, or something to that extent. Or, who knows, it could just be a kiosk again. We never know. We'll have to wait and see. But in any case, I feel like now that you've established that in Destiny 1, it's kind of expected in Destiny 2. I do like the exotic weapon kiosk idea. I do like the concept of it. It did kind of cheapen the experience of exotics. I know with Galahorn, when I got my first Galahorn back in the House of Wolves, that was it. I only had the one, so I had to transfer it between all three of my characters, whereas now, all three of my characters have their own weapons. They all have their own icebreakers, Galahorns, black spindle, swords, and so on. So it definitely is convenient. It is convenient, but when it comes to stuff like quests, especially some of the more lengthy quests, like the exotic sword quest were in the Taken King, having them in your kiosk and just being able to go and do that, or buy them from there for your other two characters, as opposed to going and completing that long-ass quest again, well, that's good. That's not a bad thing. Because that's cutting down on the amount of fluff that you're going to do, and let's be honest, there's enough fluff in Destiny. There is enough fluff in Destiny. Now, a couple of things that Bungie themselves has said about exotics in Destiny 2 is that Destiny 2 will have more exotics than Destiny 1 currently has. Now, Destiny 1 currently has a shitload of exotics when you take into consideration the adept primaries that are now dropping from the raid bosses when you complete a challenge mode in the 390 versions of the raid. I mean, just those four weapons from each of the 4 raids, that's 16 exotics that, although weren't really new, I mean, we had legendary versions in year 1, but I mean, they're exotics nonetheless. So for Bungie to say that Destiny 2 will have more exotics than Destiny 1, Destiny 2 is going to have a shitload of exotics. In addition to that, Bungie has also said that the quests for exotics will return in Destiny 2, and some exotics will still drop from RNG. Now, what I thought was interesting was in the gameplay premiere, they didn't actually show an exotic weapon dropping like they did in Destiny 1. If you go back and watch the Destiny 1 gameplay reveal, they showed an exotic weapon dropping from a boss, which ended up being total bullshit until, of course, the Taken King and the 3 of Coins. But nonetheless, they kind of teased it. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But that's going to bring this video to an end. If you enjoyed it, click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, I fucking love you. Thank you for watching. Take care, guys.